and welcome to the news on Canal the English. We begin with our top stories for tonight. Journalists in Cameroon have in strong terms condemned the arrest and detention of two colleagues while covering the arrest of opposition leader Maurice KAMTO of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. Cameroon and Italy are evaluating the fallout of President Biya's visit to Italy last year. And in Kongsamba, twin sisters, 2 weeks old, survived a fire that burnt their entire home. Developments will be yours right ahead. We begin with this story on our top stories, where the Cameroon Journalists Trade Union and other journalist associations have condemned the arrest and detention of two journalists working for the French daily Le Jour. The publisher of the newspaper has also urged authorities to trace the journalists who have not been seen ever since their arrest and call for their immediate release. This report with Amber Gladys Ndima.
These two Cameroonian journalists of the French private daily Le Jour are still missing. Theodore Chopper and David Eyenge were last seen on January 28, 2019 at the Douala residence of Albert Zongang. According to the publisher of Le Jour newspaper, Haman Manor, they were at the opposition gathering to verify information on the arrest of Maurice KAMTO, CRM president, and has expressed worries on their state while calling on competent authorities to trace the whereabouts of the missing journalists. The Cameroon Journalists Trade Union, that believes the journalists could be in custody at the judicial police in Yaoundé, has condemned their arrest.
The two journalists who were arrested amongst militants and activists of MRC today at the judicial police in Yaoundé. They have been brought there since yesterday, and we don't know if they passed through listing already, but we know that they did not come out of that office since they were brought there.
According to the Cameroon Journalists Trade Union, being a journalist is not a crime.
I would like to remind the authorities here, remind even all Cameroonians, that first-hand reporting is the main source of information for journalists, and their presence on such gathering, on scenes where activities are carrying out, is normal. It should not be considered a crime. So we do regret the fact that many journalists sometimes find themselves in trouble when they happen to find themselves in that type of scenes.
The Committee for the Protection of Journalists, Reporters Without Borders, and the Association of Sport Journalists in Cameroon have joined voices to condemn the arrest of the journalists and have called for their immediate release.
We also have an international community, many people, many other organizations who are trying at their own level to make a pressure on the government that the journalists should be released. But we are confident that our cry will be listened by the government. Those journalists were there on professional assignment. They did nothing wrong. We believe that it is just a confusion. The people who are arrested believe that they are not only they are militants of RSA, why they are not. They are journalists who were there on professional assignment.
The Cameroon Journalists Trade Union is bent on having the journalists released and will be meeting with the Minister for Communication and the Minister of Justice to that effect.
And this other press release from the Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists, Douala chapter, following the recent arrest of two journalists, Theodore Chopper and David Eyenge, working for Le Jour newspaper on January 28, 2019, Cameroon Douala chapter strongly condemns this act by government forces. These journalists were picked up while covering the arrest of Professor Maurice KAMTO, national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement (CRM) political party, and some of his close sides. Considering the law on press freedom enshrined in the constitution of the country, as well as other international human rights law, Kamasej Douala, in strong terms, condemned the arbitrary arrest and wrongful detention of Theodore Chopper and Eyenge David. Henceforth, we stand in solidarity with other professional associations in and out of Cameroon to call for the immediate, unconditional release of the aforementioned journalist. While expecting the government to act promptly, we crave government's indulgence to uphold to laws on press freedom so as to create a safer working environment for media professionals. Signed, Moki Charles Linonge, Kamasej D. President. And journalists continue to react, and this other one from the Cameroon Association of Media Professionals that has also condemned the arrest of Theodore Chopper and David Eyenge, who, while covering the arrest of CRM leader Maurice KAMTO, have spent 2 days in detention simply for doing their job. They too have called for their unconditional release as the joint forces with local, national, regional, and international media associations to decry the manhuntment of journalists during crisis reporting. We now move on to something else where the United Nations has condemned in very strong terms the arrest of the CRM leader Maurice KAMTO and other party militants following their protest march. The body is adding its voice to that of Amnesty International for their immediate and unconditional release so that this conflict in the country may come to an end. This report with Regina Lekifonjatanda.
48 hours incarceration, the arrest of the CRM leader Maurice KAMTO continues to provoke reactions. Stéphane Dujarric, spokesperson of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, on Tuesday expressed concerns following the arrest of Maurice KAMTO and some members of his party. The United Nations is thus calling on Cameroonian authorities to respect the freedom of assembly, association, but equally stressed the need for restraint by political actors. The United Nations has equally criticized the use of violence by some security forces during demonstrations in Douala. The United Nations has also condemned incidents of violence at the Cameroon embassies in Paris and Berlin. The Secretary General of the United Nations has thus reiterated the need for the Cameroonian stakeholders to engage in an inclusive and genuine political dialogue to address the challenges facing the country, adding that the United Nations stands ready to support such efforts. On their part, rights group Transparency International has demanded for an immediate and unconditional release of Maurice KAMTO and all those arrested in connection to weekend protests. In a statement released on Tuesday, Amnesty International Deputy Regional Director for West and Central Africa, Samira Dawood, warned that people should not be arrested for speaking out. He added that a crackdown on peaceful protests across several cities in Cameroon undermines the right to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly in Cameroon. Amnesty International also urged Cameroonian authorities to open investigations into attacks on peaceful protesters that led to some of them injured, amongst whom were lawyer Michel Ndoki. Following these recent statements by the United Nations and Amnesty International, many critics have questioned if beyond these concerns expressed, these international bodies can take concrete steps to force the Cameroonian government to respect the rule of law and other international conventions. The same critics have argued the United Nations and Amnesty International have been expressing concerns since the onset of the Anglophone crisis. Unfortunately, little has been done to compel the Cameroonian government to put an end to the crisis that has now degenerated into an armed conflict.
Close to 100 militants of the Cameroon Renaissance movement arrested over the weekend are presently being interrogated in Yaoundé. The exercise will determine what happens next. Crystal Katala has been monitoring this and now reports.
Over 70 militants and sympathizers of the Cameroon Renaissance movement arrested in the past days in Douala and Yaoundé have been interrogated. The interrogation exercise is taking place at the Groupement Spécial Opérationnel GSO in Yaoundé. Though nothing concrete has filtered from the interrogation, analysts have been pointing that the massive arrest of militants of the CRM party has so much to do with the vandalization of Cameroon's embassies in France, Germany, and Belgium by suspected militants of the party. Barrister Don Christopher, Secretary General of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party, says the exact number of militants arrested have not been established, given that they are detained in different places in Yaoundé. Prior to this, Cameroon Renaissance Movement has condemned the arrest of her militants by security forces. The party has rated the arrest of its leader, Professor Maurice KAMTO, as a calculated attempt to destabilize the party. In this release, signed by the Secretary General of the party, CRM has saluted the frank collaboration of other opposition political parties in Cameroon and human rights groups that have joined their voices to denounce the arrest. With both national and international pressure on the regime for the release of those arrested, all eyes are now focused on the judiciary that will either bow to the demands of human rights groups or follow a clue of judgment, as stated by the Minister of Territorial Administration, that Professor KAMTO and militants will pay for destroying state properties.
And now the arrest of Professor Maurice KAMTO has provoked so much reaction on social media. Politicians and Cameroonians have been reacting to this ever since the weekend. Regina Leke Fonjatandam visited some websites and now reports.
The news of the arrest of Maurice KAMTO on Monday night immediately spread like wildfire on social media, provoking different reactions. Akere Muna, a candidate at the last presidential elections who formed a coalition with Maurice KAMTO, declared on his Twitter page, quote, "KAMTO and many arrested. In this unfortunate attempt to show strength, we discover a government too weak to dialogue, too incompetent to understand the cry of the people." The former Transparency International Cameroon boss added that the greed of the dictators who have captured the state of Cameroon are pushing themselves towards self-destruction. On her part, political activist and leader of the Cameroon People's Party, Edith Kabangwala, took to her Facebook page and regretted that the regime of Mr. Biya, by arresting Maurice KAMTO and his close aides, has once more demonstrated its repressive nature. She noted that the arrest mirrors to those who were yet to believe the gross acts of human rights violation that have been going on in the Northwest and Southwest region for more than 2 years. Wala says her party, the CPP, strongly condemns this move, which will only help to exacerbate tensions in the country. To Ayapol Abine, former Supreme Court judge, the arrest or abduction of Maurice KAMTO, as he puts it at night, did not come as anything new in a country that does not respect the rule of law. Ayapol Abine adds the fact that one of CRM's wounded militants, Celestin Jamen, was dragged from his hospital bed to an unknown destination clearly reflects the atrocities that have been committed in Anglophone Cameroon, where wounded civilians are deprived of medical care. Reacting to the arrest, the Modegno political party condemned in very strong terms the arrest of Maurice KAMTO. The party noted that the MRC is yet to get over the barbaric acts that were meted on them during Saturday's protests. The party added that this will only help to increase tension in a country whose socio-political atmosphere is already tensed. To the human rights lawyer Felix Agwonkongum, the arrest and detention of Maurice KAMTO will not help the current tense sociopolitics. His views have been shared by several users of different social media platforms who have taken to their handles to condemn in strong terms the arrest of Maurice KAMTO. Many on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms says Cameroon cannot afford to fight wars from 3 fronts, noting the Boko Haram in the far north region of the country, the degenerated Anglophone crisis in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country, and now facing the supporters of Maurice KAMTO.
Who is this man, Professor Maurice Kamto, who has been topping news charts home and abroad? Once more, Regina Leke Fonjatanda gives a profile of the man.
Born in February 1954 in Bafoussam, West Region of Cameroon, Maurice Kamto completed most of his basic and secondary education in the West Region before moving to the University of Yaoundé 1, where he backed a degree in law in 1979. In the 1980s, Maurice Kamto embarked on further studies in different foreign universities, where he backed a master's and a doctorate degree in international studies and law respectively. He served as a member of the International Law Commission of the United Nations from 1999 to 2016. He led a Cameroon delegation during negotiations to resolve the Bakassi Peninsula dispute with neighboring Nigeria. His decisive contributions caused him to be appointed as Minister Delegate to the Minister of Justice in 2004. He resigned from the government in November 2011 and formed his own political party, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. A kick-off meeting of his party, merging multiple parties, was prohibited by government on August 13, 2012. He was banned from launching his party in Yaoundé by the incumbent regime, who already saw him as a potential threat. Kamto, however, successfully launched his party in Douala and Bamenda. In mid-2018, when incumbent President Paul Biya announced the Electoral College, it was clear he already had a contender in the person of Maurice Kamto. To his millions of supporters online, Maurice Kamto declared his wish to run for president. He elaborated his political program that rested on 5 key points, top of which was to solve the current Anglophone crisis. In his rallies to the gear up to the presidential elections, Maurice Kamto described himself as a penalty kicker with a mission to kick and score his way to a toddy. After the October 7 presidential elections, Maurice Kamto, in a highly televised news conference in Yaoundé, declared he had won the elections, calling on Paul Biya to organize a peaceful transfer of power. This, however, did not happen, as the Constitutional Council declared incumbent President Paul Biya as the winner. Following the inauguration of President Paul Biya for the 7th term, Maurice Kamto called on his supporters not to relent their efforts, but to denounce what he described as electoral hold-up. On January 26, 2018, his party, the CRM, led several protests leading to arrest, shooting and incarceration of some members. Maurice Kamto, who equally marched in the Dokoti area, will later on January 28, 2019 be arrested and whisked to Yaoundé for trying to destabilize the country. Tongues are now wagging on what next could happen to a man who considers himself the right tenant to the Etudi Unity Palace, but who unfortunately is now in the midst of hardened criminals.
We now move on to something else, where Cameroon has once again been ranked as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. In the 2018 Corruption Perception Index released on Tuesday by Transparency International, noted that Cameroon continuously fails to significantly control corruption and contributing to the crisis of democracy in the world. According to the rights group, Cameroon remains amongst the most corrupt countries in West and Central Africa, surpassing Ghana and Nigeria put together. Out of 157 countries, Cameroon occupies 152nd position on least corrupt countries in the world. The elections organizing body, Elections Cameroon, has expressed determination to handle new challenges in 2018 with experience. The Director General and the staff made the confirmation this day in Yaoundé. Details with Beatrice Gamo.
Accepting perfect fundamental values that promote dignity, honor, greatness of the human being, and form the base for development of universal human societies, mission of Elections Cameroon Elecam this year.
The year 2019 is an important election year in Cameroon. Legislative, municipal, and regional elections are expected. We already have some experience in organizing various elections. We must once again show the extent of our expertise. The success of this election depends on an optimal mobilization of every one of us wherever they find themselves.
Officials of ELECAM therefore need to manage their collaborators and encourage them to always do their best in quest of performance. The performance needed to meet the many challenges and wipe out the several obstacles the elections organizing body have been facing in the past years. It is to set the record straight and formulate better ways for ELECAM to consolidate her experience to meet her objectives. The security challenges in the northwest and southwest regions, situations in the east and far north notwithstanding, Elections Cameroon was able last year to organize senatorial and presidential election in March and October respectively. To continue therefrom, focus will be in the intensification of sensitization campaign and registration of voters on electoral list with attention on target groups such as women and the youths and vulnerable such as persons living with disabilities. The distribution of the many voters' cards at ELECAM branches will also intensify. The welfare and well-being of the staff importance for the success of these activities reiterates the staff representative. Another top priority this 2019 as ELECAM continues project for Cameroonians to register and vote during elections.
In line with economic cooperation between Cameroon and Italy, some 10 boreholes have been constructed in the central region. This Wednesday, both countries evaluated the fallout of their relationship on the population. Once more, Beatrice Gamo.
This drill is the 10th installed here in the central region of Cameroon. Major projects of the Cameroon-Italian consortium, KAMTO. Behind is a large hydraulic equipment imported from Italy. The borehole, constructed at the Tokos neighborhood after Simbok, under the Mbankomo district, is the fallout of the new Italo-Cameroonian cooperation after the visit of Italian President Sergio Mattarella in 2006 to Cameroon and that of Cameroon's head of state Paul Biya to Italy in 2017. Here, the know-how company Fontana, specialized in water research of over 1 meter deep, is being saluted by Italian embassy in Cameroon. Such economic initiative give us opportunity to assure the transfer of know-how in particular manner. Italians work in Cameroon in line with the historic friendship between the two people and our way of work, which is very similar. Through this developed cooperation, transfer of know-how, the company does not only bring in Italian material for the construction of boreholes and other projects, but also ensure the training of Cameroonians. The central region is the first to enjoy this high-level marriage.
A lot of these boreholes for last financial year were not well completed or not well done. But we now have people who will be able to give us a good account, a good feedback of this, and I think that without doing their publicity, that if persons in charge of water projects in the region can work in hand with them, it will give us good results.
A drill of this kind generates 2 cubic meters of water in 1 hour, sufficient liquid to quench the thirst of a whole village.
The UN resident representative in Cameroon has paid a working visit to the Minister of Communication. The two discussed, amongst other issues, fake news, hate speech, and the need for strategic communication. This report
is around communication alongside ongoing collaboration between the United Nations systems and Cameroon. Focus of discussion, Cameroon's Minister of Communication, René Emmanuel Sadi, had with the resident representative of United Nations Development Program to Cameroon, Allegra Maria del Pilar Bayochi, this January 29.
We talked about ongoing work, ongoing projects, but we also talked about the challenges around communication. We talked about, of course, fake news and hate speech and how important and difficult it is today to get to the truth and communicate the real stories. So we talked about open and transparent communication, but also strategic communication and how we can work towards that. And so that led us to talk a little bit about future projects and future areas of communication and how to ensure, on the one side, the freedom of press, but also the responsibility of the press.
The United Nations Development Programme resident representative was accompanied to this first visit to Cameroon's communication minister by her colleagues of Telecommunications Unit ITU and UNESCO, the two organs closely related to communications with the United Nations.
The people of Quarter 4 in Kongsamba are still to understand how two sisters cheated death today. The two babies, just 2 weeks old, saw their house burnt and they came out alive. The rest of the story in the following report.
These tears are from a father whose twin babies were saved miraculously from a fire. Tiwo Alex saw his 4-room house reduced to ashes, but his twin daughters of 2 weeks saved by Quarter youths who rushed to the scene. Difficult to tell if his tears are for the babies or for the house. My wife gave birth 2 weeks ago to a set of twin girls. I don't have a fixed job. I just struggle. I roast pork and all is now gone in flames. My documents. I don't know what to do next. I don't have money. The fire incident occurred when the father and mother were out in search for daily bread. I was at work when my colleague told me it was my house on fire. When I got here, I just collapsed. I can't explain the rest. The devastating situation in which the family is now found, Good Samaritans have shown up. It is painful seeing these babies. I want to propose to the family to move in with me. I don't know for how long, while we look for means to build another house. Babies of 2 weeks old in the open is just impossible. The house with 4 rooms had 10 occupants. Thank God no life was lost, but for heavy material damage, for all went down in flames.
And on to our foreign page tonight, more than 130 migrants are reported missing after 2 boats capsized in the East African nation of Djibouti. This and more put together by our intern Ladonette O'Neill Ondesa.
More than 130 migrants are reported missing after 2 boats capsized Tuesday 29 off the tiny East African nation of Djibouti. 13 bodies have so far been retrieved, and the rescue team is on the lookout for others. Witnesses say the boats were overloaded and violent waves caused them to tip over about a half hour after departing. Report has it that thousands of migrants from the African continent set off every year to the Arabian Peninsula with hopes of finding a good job in the rich Gulf countries. Former Mozambican Finance Minister Manuel Chang is expected to be in court Thursday 31st to know the outcome of his bail application. This was after the Mozambican Attorney General Office and the Supreme Court had requested to withdraw his immunity last week. The former minister was arrested at Johannesburg Airport December 29 for an alleged involvement in looting over $2 billion from the state coffers. A Kenyan man who suffered brain damage after a botched surgery at a hospital in the country's capital, Nairobi, in 2005, has been awarded 44.5 million Kenyan shillings by a high court. Report has it that this damage was caused by the negligence of a doctor at the hospital who administered anesthesia on him. The sister to the opposition leader, Miriam Sadi Al-Mahdi, confirms the arrest of her sister by Sudanese security forces. This comes a week after her father called for the resignation of the president Omar al-Bashir, and less than 24 hours after the Sudanese intelligence chief announced the release of all detained persons connected to the protest. The authorities are yet to respond to this news and to explain reasons for her detention.
This information brings us to the end of the newscast tonight on Canal English. Thanks for watching.